in my tenure in the membership sales business, which is really inadvertently the business that I'm in, I've learned a really important lesson, and that is that referrals are your number one source of sales, of new sales. If you've got happy members, they're telling their friends about it, and those friends join. And they're usually a very, very easy conversation. So when somebody's got an endorsement from a friend, they typically will give it a lot more of their trust and therefore accept that that product may be right for them if they've been recommended that product. The other thing about the members that refer other members or friends is retention. Those members that are happy enough in the product and they like the product enough to refer somebody are usually sticking around. They enjoy the product, they're going to stick around. So retention's high in that group too. My point though, with both those groups is that they're one and the same person. They're a happy member, and that happy member actually helps you drive sales.
Yeah, so you talk about the affinity formula being the secret sauce. Can you explain what the affinity formula is?
Yeah, so the affinity formula actually looks at what drives that happy member. And what does drive it is the team experience. So if team members are having a great time, they love their work, they're engaged, they enjoy what they do, and they enjoy the experience that they're having at work, then they're going to drive that member experience. But what drives the team experience is leadership. So really, if you start at the beginning, great leadership leads to a great team experience, which equals a great member experience, which equals financial results.
Oh, that sounds like a new way of doing business, but really the most common sense way to do business, isn't it?
Well, a lot of times we manage our business from the balance sheet, profit and loss statements, membership sales, we're looking at the financials. And we often forget to put the focus that we need to across what's driving those membership sales. And again, just backing back up to the formula, if we look at the people piece, if the people piece is ticking along beautifully, if you've got great leaders and managers in the group, members are having team members are having a great experience at work, they're really engaged, the members are having a great experience, I can guarantee that that business is flourishing. So I've always managed from that side of the business, from the people side of the business. And what I've learnt indelibly is that if that piece is right, the financials will come, so the money will come.
Can you talk a little about why you use the term team member instead of staff or employee?
Yeah, some might see it as semantics. A team member is often an employee or a staff member, in inverted commas, if you will. But in actual fact, they are far more than that. An employee tends to look at themselves as fulfilling a job to get money. And same with a staff member. A team member tends to look at them being engaged in an activity together with other people to achieve an outcome. And yes, there's money at stake. You know, they're getting paid to do that, but what we're really asking a team member to do is to join together with their fellow team members to create, in this case, a great experience for their members. So I see calling our team members, I see that as just being underwriting the principles that we're describing here, in that if you've got a bunch of different departments and they're all independent of each other, they're silos, that's not a team. And so I don't see a team as being the Group X department or the membership department or the sales department, or depending on what your business is, doesn't matter what division it is, but all those people need to come together so that when they are achieving the result we want, that is a great member experience, they're doing it together. And it's the only way you can really do it, because if someone has a great experience at your reception desk but doesn't have a great experience with a salesperson, that's where it breaks down. It's no longer a team event. So team versus staff versus employee I see as being just, it underlines what we're trying to achieve through the affinity principle.
It seems to me that in order to be that great leader who is trying to build a people-centric culture, that meaning team members as well as customers or members, the metrics that they should be measuring are around those two constituencies. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, so when I wrote the Affinity Principle, I did that during COVID. And that was a great opportunity to distill what I'd learned over the previous 30 years in building membership-based companies. And in doing that, I realized that really if we could measure the referral likelihood, okay, so how likely someone was to refer a friend or a family member to a business, be that a member or a team member. So let's step back from that. So if a team member loves the company they're working for and they're willing to say to their friends and their family members, hey, you should come and work for our company, then that indicates that they're having a pretty good time, that they're engaged, that they enjoy that experience. So that's a really important measurement. And that measurement's called ENPS, or Employee Net Promoter Score. Now, that's not my terminology. I would call it Team Member Net Promoter Score, but that's the industry standard is ENPS. Then the trickle down is the NPS. That's the Net Promoter Score. So that's where you gauge the members' experience. And again, if the member's having a great experience and they love the business, they're likely to refer to the business and they're also likely to stick around. So the referral potential and the retention potential of the member or team member that are having a great experience, that are expressing that in a high NPS score or ENPS score, is absolutely critical to measure. So we developed a system on the back of the Affinity Principle, the book, which is driven by AI. So the Affinity OS platform is driven by AI. And what it does, it takes the ENPS numbers for the team and the NPS numbers for the members and distills it into an index. And the reason we call it an index is, we're less worried about a score here. We're really looking at trend and we're looking at sentiment. And trend, if your trend's going up, that's a good thing. If it's static, provided you're in a good place, that's a good thing. If it's going down, not such a good thing. So, we want to measure trends. But more importantly, we want to measure sentiment, because sentiment's hard to gauge. But through AI, you can actually bubble that to the surface and you can look at it across one site, 10 sites, 1,000 sites because of the scalability of it. So with Affinity OS, what we're doing is measuring ENPS, NPS, and putting that together in the Affinity Index to give a leader, a manager, a team, real insights into what are we doing right, what could we do better, where are we at, and how do we get to a better place? Because, I said before, if you're static, that's okay. I don't think any of us actually would accept that. I think most of us know that if we're static, we're probably going to get overtaken. So we've got to be constantly looking for growth. And that growth shouldn't be just in terms of the number of members that are involved in the business. It's also around peripheral profits. So are people spending more money inside that club? And we'll cover this in future podcasts, things like peripheral profits and how to drive that. A lot of this is it all circles around these two numbers and ultimately the affinity index.
Does it do anything else beyond that? Like, does it help you communicate? Does it help you form relationships, trust? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, but let me come back to that in a sec. I just want to speak about mindfulness and the mindful leader. A lot of people put the woo-woo tag on that. What does that really mean? And it's really pretty simple. The mindful leader is present, meaning they're there in the moment, right? And there's nothing more in the moment than what that platform delivers, because it's delivering you real-time data and information and sentiment around what's happening in your company. So that's really important. So really being a mindful leader isn't about sitting on a rock somewhere and meditating. What it really is about is just being present and aware of what's going on in your business. So just jump forward to the second part of the question, or the actual question, and that is the mindful leader is going to take action around the numbers or around the information they receive. Your question about the communication piece is critical. What I've seen in all the companies that I've ever dealt with that were struggling is a communication misstep or a communication black hole, if you want, And so I've seen that as being a critical part of growing a company out of a problem or into a flourishing enterprise. So the Affinity OS system uses a communication platform that is a closed loop. So meaning that the communication filters out to the customer service person or whoever is receiving the feedback, and they can respond to that feedback. And it's really powerful to be able to close that loop and acknowledge that person. And I could use hundreds of examples where people have actually complained about something, and it might be a small thing, it might be a big thing, but just the response of, hey, we've heard you, we're addressing it, or hey, we've heard you, but this is a situation, or hey, we've heard you and we really appreciate the feedback, usually gets a response from the member of, oh my goodness, you actually got back to me. Because it's so rare for a company to acknowledge that. And the system, the Affinity OS system, is designed to bring that communication to a close. So it's designed to bring it to the top, get that question, challenge, or issue addressed, or at least acknowledged, and bring that person full loop around to a point where they go, okay, they actually care about me. I've seen a lot of people on the system, for example, start as a 3 or a 4 or a 5, which would be classified as a detractor on the Net Promoter System, and suddenly become a 9 or a 10 simply because they feel like you actually listen to me.
Yeah, listening is such an art, and it's missing, right, in communication. And you talk about mindful leader being present. The first word that comes into my mind when you say that is listen. So few of us listen these days. I think that's a really great point. So yeah, I definitely see how Affinity OS is a great listening mechanism first and foremost. Talk a little bit about how that communication works on the team member side of Affinity OS.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the system is designed to be anonymous because we really want team members to be very transparent about their experience. A lot of times they're afraid if they do express themselves and they're known that there might be repercussions from a manager or a leader if they're the ones that are under challenge. So the team member can opt in or opt out. So they can opt in to be known, or they can opt out, and that's a great system. And I'd say on average about 20%, maybe 30% of team members wanted to be known or want to be known, and it's usually someone that wants us to give them some feedback directly. One thing I'd say on top of that though is if you're getting all this feedback from your team members, it's really good to think about creating a mechanism to communicate with them, because you might be getting this feedback constantly from anonymous sources, if you will, that there's a particular issue within the company, and you can address it through maybe a newsletter or a team email, or depends on what it is, but some way of actually saying to the team, hey, we're listening, we're hearing, and here's what we're doing about it. What we've seen, or what I've seen over the years, both with manual systems to do this and now a much more sophisticated platform to do it, is the ability to head off big issues among your team, and obviously this is the same for the members, that may have normally overtaken us, and we may not have even been aware of them, because a lot of times when you're managing multiple sites, you've got hundreds or even thousands of team members. It's really hard to stay in tune with that.
That's amazing. It really brings to mind the system being this great balance between digital and analog, because you have the AI, right? A lot of people still look at AI and go, oh, that AI is terrible. That doesn't really work. It's no. Maybe 5 years ago it didn't, but it's come a really long way. But then you also have this great mechanism for really analog communication, because it's real human beings communicating with your members and customers and your team members. So it seems like this great balance between the two, and it really seems like a really powerful tool.
Yep. So, I'd like to speak to the analog and digital thing, because I really feel like we live in a predominantly digital world. But you're exactly right. That human touch that comes through with those exchanges is really powerful.
And on a big scale, because like you said, if somebody has, let's say, thousands of sites, how do you get across that? But This gives you the ability to delegate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But importantly, if you think about that communication from the human, even if somebody says, I love you, you guys are awesome, just that note saying, hey, I really appreciate your feedback, we love you too, or something like that. But where it's more personal, where it's not just this rote response. So the analog piece is really important. And what's neat about the system is it's proportionate to the size of the business. So if you've got a very small business, you might only get 2 or 3 pieces of feedback a day, and that might take 3 or 4 minutes. And you can have templates for sure, to respond with the templates, but it's really important to put that personal touch to them. It really does raise it up as a more human experience.
What if somebody doesn't have Affinity OS?
It's a great question. So certainly when I started looking at the NPS number and then looked at the ENPS number, this is going back quite some time, we managed it manually, and it's actually relatively easy to manage. The challenge with it is if you use a tool like a SurveyMonkey or something like that, anonymity is hard to achieve. There's just limitations.
Well, and then you got to analyze it yourself. So on the grant, that's not scalable, is it?
You do, yeah, you do. And like, to be honest, these days, like, you think about ChatGPT, it's such a powerful tool, and people are learning just how amazing AI can be, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. So the Affinity OS would be, to me, my recommendation to people, not simply because we're involved in it, but simply because we developed it out of a need. And I don't
through experience. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
in this game for a long time, if I may say so myself.
Thank you. Yeah, but we really saw a need to be able to distill this information and bubble it to the top, and have it in a very visual way too, because one of the things we've tried to achieve, and I think we've achieved pretty well with Affinity OS, is a very visual platform. And the other thing is it is scaled, so a company would typically pay, literally a cent or two a day for the system per member. And in the big scheme of things, to have the power of all that information at your fingertips, it works pretty well.
Sounds to me like a lot cheaper situation than trying to acquire new leads. I mean, the cost would be lower of just trying to retain your existing member than trying to, go through the whole process, no?
Yeah, so you could do the math on it, but you'd only have to save 1 member a month and you'd be way, way ahead.
Wow.
That's sort of...
I think that says it all, doesn't it?
Yes, kind of does, yeah.
Okay. So what can we expect in future episodes? What are you going to be talking about and drilling into deeper?
So I really want to get into the sales piece. How can we maximize our sales potential in the membership space? I want to get into the retention piece. How can we do that? Like, how can we gain maximum traction in our retention efforts with minimum effort? So one of the things I do want to emphasize is I have been in this game a long time, and I know how hard it is, and particularly when, wages are high, we've got, a lot of challenges in the workplace. So it's not like we can throw a lot of resources at these things. It's got to be simple. So simple retention strategies. And then the referral piece too, I'll be covering, a lot around the referral piece and how we can drive that as well. A lot of what we'll talk about will be based on behavioural science, because I really think it's got to be backed by not what people say they'll do, but actually what people do. So there's some powerful insights to come.
That sounds excellent and exciting. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And if you have any comments or feedback, you can reach out to us on social media or leave a comment. And we hope you can join us next time. Have a good one.
Thank you.